In this session, we're going to take a look at how we can use pointers to functions to handle a menuing system. There are 5 basic steps that we're going to work through to implement our menu system. The first of which is to figure out just what each function has to do. So what we're thinking about here is each of the menu items, and we want to think about menu item 1. Maybe that's to enter some new data. Maybe menu number 2 is to print the data. So what we need to think about is what kind of input and output do each of those need, and we wanted to settle in on something that's common. So here, for example, I said we'll pass in a string. So if we're going to ask the user to enter information or anything like that, we would want to be able to pass in a prompt, and then maybe we want to return information about whether that menu item was successful or not. So an integer value would be a good way to say 1 means it worked, 2 means it didn't work. So we need to think about what input and what output is going to allow us to do each of these menu items. Then once we've done that, we're going to use our typedef that we looked at in the last video to create a new data type. So here we're using typedef to do that. And here you'll notice that we've chosen the format from above. So our return type is int. Our input is a pointer to a string. And what we've done is we've replaced the name of the function with a new data type. So inside brackets, we've got a pointer to a function. The second thing we need to do is to create a structure that's going to hold all the information about our menus. So the information that we need to provide is the name of the function and all the parameters that we're going to pass in. So for our particular example, our new data type was called FUNC, and then we're going to the variable name we're going to use to access that is lowercase FUNC. The prompt was the other piece of information. That was what we needed to pass into the function, and we're going to call that field str. Now, once we've done that, at the same time we can actually declare an array that's going to hold all the information about all the menu items that we have. So here we have 2. We have the first one called, the function will be called doMenu1 action, and the prompt we'll pass in is the data required by menu1 action. The second menu function we'll have is called doMenu2 action, and the prompt we'll pass in is data required by menu2 action. So we can see here we have the names of our functions that we'll access using FUNC, and we have our strings, or the prompts that will be passed in, that we'll access using the field str. So the first 2 steps of the process are done before we get to the actual main part of the code. So our structure would be defined where we would normally define our structures, and in this case we've actually laid out that array called menu functions that allows us to identify what the names of each of our menu functions are and what string we were passing in. So now it's time to actually start looking at and using those. Before we do that, it's normal to have a function specifically to display the items available in the menu and let the user choose. So if we had 4 menu items, item would be a value 0, 1, 2, or 3 that would specify which menu the user chose. Once we've done that, we can then use our menu functions array that we set up that specifies the names of our functions and the parameters to pass. So say for example, the user chose the first menu item and item is 0. So what we're going to do now is go to menu functions item, and so item would be 0. And what are we going to get from that? We're going to get the function field. So that function field gave us the name of the function. So it's going to choose which function. Then the brackets are enclosing a second field. So again, we're going to menu functions element 0. This time we're picking up the string, which is the prompt. So we're actually getting the name of the function here, the prompt that we want here. So this instruction line is converting to something like, and I forget what I called mine, I think it was menu 1 action, bracket, and then whatever the prompt was we had associated with menu number 1. So this line right here, for any of the menu items we have specified in our structure, will pull out the name of the function and pull out the parameters. The last two steps are pretty straightforward. In number 4, we're actually going to write the functions that do the actions. So there's the name of the function, do menu 1 action. It's expecting a string, and it's going to print that string and do some other things. We would need to provide one of these functions for each menu we've identified in that structure. The last step is to actually do the prototypes. And we know that once we have declared a function, then we copy that line and paste it into our prototype section. So ultimately we're going to have one prototype for each of those menus we defined in that original structure.